Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be doing a coffee station makeover. We have had this coffee station for 6 years now, and it is time to freshen things up. So we're going to be removing the top and replacing it with solid wood. So here we're going to be using some plywood and some pieces of red oak. This DIY allowed us to save some money by just replacing the top as opposed to replacing the entire cabinet. The end result was so satisfying. I hope you guys enjoy this one. As with any project, you always want to start with a clean slate. So I'm going to start removing everything from this coffee station. After removing everything, you can see all the coffee grounds that kind of went under that was difficult to reach. So now I'm just going to vacuum everything all up and wipe down the top. And yes, there is a reason for my madness here. I am cleaning a top that I will be discarding, and you will be seeing that later on in the video. A close-up of the damages on my coffee station. As you see, it started to bubble up from getting wet. Now this is the problem with compressed wood, where you can't get it wet because you get all this damage. So we're going to be removing this and replacing it with real wood that we will seal to avoid any of this damage. Here's the plywood and red oak we're going to be using. I will list these in the description below. And here is my wonderful husband who did all of the handy work. So he measured everything out and cut everything down to size so that we can just piece everything together. After removing the previous top, we decided to do a dry fit. To do this, we moved the plywood to the top of the cabinet and started laying out all of our pieces of oak so that it had a butcher block look to it. Now we did have to go back to our home improvement store to pick up another piece of red oak because somebody miscalculated. And no, it wasn't my husband, it was me. I admit it, I made a mistake. So after staggering these pieces of wood to the look we want, you can see the empty spaces that we need to fill in to complete this look. Now that all of our pieces of wood are cut to size and dry fit, we labeled everything so that we can remove it and nail down our plywood. To assure permanent adhesion of each piece of wood, we went with liquid nails that is used for paneling and Gorilla wood glue. Pack your bags, I got a one-way ticket to explore the world tonight. I want you back, so come with me. instead of placing each piece of wood one at a time, we decided to tape everything so that when we placed it down, we didn't have glue coming up between each piece of wood and everything was nice and compact. Now all we had to do was make sure that all the ends were aligned, press the pieces of wood down to ensure contact. And here is the reason I cleaned the previous top. We're going to be using it to press down all of the pieces of wood at the same time to make sure that every piece is sticking to the plywood. So now we are clamping each side so that the pieces of wood are pressed together and we have no gaps. We applied weights to ensure that each piece of wood is being pressed down against the glue and plywood at the same time. This is going to avoid any pieces of wood from popping up and being higher than the rest. We want it to be nice and flat and without any gaps.
Drinks in Ibiza, anywhere you wanna go, baby, you just let me know. Sunny Indonesia, don't say no. Sipping on tequila, anything you wanna see, be there in a heartbeat. Just say the words and we can go. We've got just one life, baby, so live it up, take it one day at a time. Keep it shining like the stars we see.
After letting everything dry overnight, we prayed that nothing shifted and that it turned out the way we wanted it to, and sure enough it did. We have very minor gaps, and that's all because some of the wood was bowed, and with the weight as it readjusted, it kind of left really small gaps. But it's nothing we can't fix. So as you see, my husband is now sanding everything down, and we are going to be using the sawdust that we collect from this to fill in the gaps. So we're just making sure we have no pieces of raised wood and everything is nice and smooth. We don't want to get any splinters from this. So sanding is an essential part of this DIY. So if you don't have a sander, you may want to invest in one, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and just get a sanding block. But to make things faster, we used our electric sander. And now I'm collecting all of the sawdust that we got from sanding down the top, and we're going to be making a filling paste. And to do that, you just want to use your sand dust and wood glue, and this is going to allow you to fill in the gaps, sand it down again once it's dried, and you can stain it because it does have the pieces of wood. So you're not going to get any awkward look to it where it's going to look plasticky. It's actually going to look like wood. Now that all of the gaps are filled, we are going to make this look as though it was one piece. So remember, we glued wood onto plywood, so we have two different layers. And to do this, I purchased a veneer that is made of red oak. And this thing is like the easiest thing you can apply. All you need is something to heat it up. I wound up using my garment iron / steamer. It's an extra one that I had laying around, and this is what it's good for, these little projects where you have to iron little things. And all you do is heat it up so that it can adhere to the piece of wood. Now, the great thing about this is that this veneer is made of real wood, so it's like a really thin strip of oak. So once it is stuck on, you just cut it down to the size and sand it down. was not the easiest to do because it is actual wood. You're not gonna get a straight line, so you have to kind of create that straight line. Your blade is gonna want to go with the natural curves of the wood, but that's what makes it a little difficult, and that is why you have to sand it down afterwards. Now we are going to seal and stain this wood, and since it is all red oak now, it's going to match. To stain and seal, I used Varathane stain and poly, and the color that I used was classic oak. I was trying to go for a light oak color to match my island. So this is how the classic oak stain looks on red oak. To finish it off, my husband is adding the trim, which will cover up any little gap between the top and the cabinet, and this also dresses it up. So while the poly stain is drying, I decided to get back here and clean off the floorboards along with the wall, because we did sand the wood and that sawdust gets everywhere. So we're gonna wipe down the walls, and it looks like we did have a little spill that went back here that was not cleaned properly. So I'm gonna make sure I clean this all up. That way we can push this back and put everything back where it goes. And this just gives you an idea of how much sawdust landed on the floor. So it is time to vacuum that up before we start putting things back. try to make everything look cohesive, I decided to pick up these spice jars at the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to fill one with cinnamon, the other one with cocoa powder, and I already had one that was filled with powdered sugar.
You're making me stronger, making me stronger. Stay a bit longer. You're making me stronger, making me stronger, making me stronger.
keep little packets of sugar in here, and I always add some sugar substitute like Equal or Splenda for any visitors who cannot have sugar in their coffee but do use an alternative sweetener.
Making me stronger. Stay up in line. You're making me stronger.
So if you're wondering why I'm storing my K-cups one up, one down, it's because this allows me to fit one more in per row. I used to do them with the tops all up, and I found that somehow when you flip every other one, you get this extra space. And friends, this is how my coffee station turned out. I hope you all enjoyed this video and that it motivates you to take on any project that you may be hesitating to take on. Just set your mind to it and you can get it done. If you like videos like this, you can always subscribe down below, drop a comment, and give me a thumbs up. See you in the next one.